Hey, Stephen, man, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I do want to point out that I have been pretty hard on you on Twitter. I would call it brutally honest, tactlessly honest, maybe. And you handle it well. And the fact that you're still willing to have me on is
Oh,
a tribute to you.
I'm so glad you said that because you kind of reminded me. Yes, that is our dynamic. And mostly what I want to get into is I want to hear your critique of my not philosophy, because Lord knows I don't have a philosophy at this point. I'm grasping at straws, and I think I want one, but you know, I want to hear your thoughts on my the status of my political journey. I'm very interested. So thank you for all that. And of
Oh,
course,
you're
it's
welcome.
great to have you, man. I'm
Thank
so
you.
great. No, I'm grateful for the constructive criticism. So I'm looking forward to this. So looking forward to getting to know you. Yeah. How long have we been doing this little dance on Twitter now?
Wow.
A couple years?
Yeah, at least a year, I would think. I was
Right.
thinking a
Right.
year, but it's been
Right.
a while.
So tell me, so Dragon, what is this? Your alter ego?
You know, it's kind of been a long project. I'm an inventor, and I invented I I'm gonna make I'll start with a big claim here. I invented the NFT or a NFT, an embodiment of the NFT, and I tried to put yeah. So if you want to, that's a rabbit hole we probably shouldn't go down.
Okay.
But the NFT was for a game, and Dragon was the title of the game or the title of the characters in the game. So it was kind of a name I came up with the spelling. I once upon a time had the .com for that whole thing, and
Hmm.
uh, when that didn't fly, I just decided to keep the name and use it as the nom de guerre. So that's where that came from. Basically, that project I would say hit the woke wall. That's how I
Hmm.
think of it. They just they were doing their thing and they weren't interested in hearing, very
So you had some, that project didn't pan out the way you wanted it to.
well. I think of it as just an evolving thing. I just keep they talk in inventions. We talk about embodiments of an invention when you're coming up with new versions. So I would say I've just kind of evolved. The present status is it's a YouTube channel where I do AI 5 minute essays, roughly 5 minutes. And lately I've been doing, I used to be a DJ. I've been doing music mixes, which kind of following your lead. So I definitely wanted to hit
I don't know
on
about that.
the fact that we're both into music. And
Yeah.
I think that's really important,
Mm-hmm.
a really
Why?
important part of
I agree, certainly, but why?
because if you've looked into the two hemispheres of the brain, have you looked into any of that research or any of that dynamic?
No.
There's been research that shows that the two hemispheres of the brain are really kind of at war, or can
Mm-hmm.
be at war. So I think they probably get along pretty well in most people. We all make it work, but
Mm-hmm.
I think artistic expression is very important for mental health. So I think everybody,
Mm.
and as far
For sure. For
as an
sure.
inventor goes, I think of it as flexing the creative muscle too. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well, there's nothing like it. I mean, I say looking back on it, I can't believe I took 8 years off of playing guitar when I got, when I decided to get into law school,
well,
which
yeah,
is
and
the
that
greatest thing I ever did, best
takes a
thing I
lot
ever
of
did
time.
for myself at 28, to try to take my career into my own hands and elevate myself.
So how old are you
And
now? I wanted to touch
I'm
on that. How old are you now?
36 now. I'm
36.
36. I was 28 when I got in and stopped playing basketball and stopped playing video games and stopped playing guitar, which I'd been playing less of anyway compared to 15 to 23.
Hmm.
But looking back on it, you know not playing guitar at all between 28 and 36 was mind-boggling, but I'm recently back into it and it's so therapeutic,
Wow.
and there's
I
nothing
could
like it.
I
There's
could
nothing
see.
like it. My father's a musician, my father's a composer, so I don't know, songwriting, just being creative, the therapy, there's nothing like it, man. To
Yeah.
just, you
So yeah,
know,
I think people need to find an outlet for that. Whatever they
yeah,
do, I think it's very important.
yeah,
And
yeah. I've been missing it.
so as this has evolved, I talked about starting a project in the school that was originally to help kids learn to code. This was back in, and I wanted to kind of establish a timeline. I I've been studying philosophy since my senior year in high school. I've become fascinated, which means I've been studying philosophy longer than you've been alive.
Yeah, how old are you now, my friend?
I'm 61.
Okay.
In 1993, that's the year I graduated from college, late 1993.
Okay.
In 1993, I wrote a essay for a essay contest, which basically was the beginnings, the early version of my philosophy, which I call Dragonism now, to hang on to that name.
Yeah.
And I also did a music mix in support of a paper where I was arguing that postmodern art is that DJ music mixing is a form of postmodern art. I did a paper for that in school, and I did a
Cool.
demo, a DJ demo.
Sweet.
So a few weeks ago, I ran across the cassette tape with that demo on it, and in an effort just to save it, I wanted to get it digitized and stored somewhere. So I digitized it, did a little bit of editing, and I released it on my channel.
Nice.
And that kind of started. So I call them they're 15-minute mixes, 3 to 5 songs. I call them LDSs, or long dong songs, because, and what I'm doing is I'm telling a story with songs. I'm mixing the songs. I'll set the song up where the first song is setting up a character, and then the next song is that character speaking.
Are there lyrics?
Yeah, so I'm just using music. So I'm using people's music.
Okay. Right. Gotcha. Right. Of course.
That was
right.
that was 1993 that I did that.
Wow.
And it's important to note that at that point I walked away. I really loved philosophy. I've been studying it since high school, and I studied at college. I minored. I have a business degree, business management, but minored in philosophy. And I really would have loved to become a philosophy professor, but I just didn't see I didn't see the numbers. The job market was really bad for the kind of thing. So I walked away from the idea of vocationally pursuing philosophy.
Right.
And I thought, somebody's got this. I felt like I had a lot of stuff figured out even back then. I figured, the world doesn't need me.
Mm-hmm.
And then now here we are. What the heck happened, right? So I think part of where the academia has gone wrong is, well, I think we're being sabotaged. So part of the advantage I offer, I think, is being away from, I've been studying philosophy on my own, but I haven't been kind of poisoned by what's going on in the academy.
So first of all, what drew you to philosophy, and then describe what do you mean by the poisoning?
Well, the first thing was epistemological doubt. This idea, I think it's called sophistry. I might have my terms mixed up. But someone put forth this theory that the world creates itself for you. So, I'm sitting here in my desk, I'm looking out the window, and there's this idea that nothing exists what I see, other than what I see. And how do you know? I don't know that there's anything in the world beyond my sight there outside the window. But it's almost like, you ever have a computer where you have a button that's off the screen and you pull it up, and the computer hasn't generated the graphics for the button because you weren't looking at it? Kind of along those lines. So there's this epistemological doubt that you can't really be sure of anything you're seeing.
Or beyond what you're seeing.
Well, even what you're seeing. How do you know someone's not feeding you something? And this was kind of, I think, most brought to fruition under Immanuel Kant.
Really?
Who kind of...
So this idea that I can't even trust what I'm sensing, what I'm being fed. How do
Right.
I know? The ultimate skepticism.
Right.
Tell me more about Kant.
You can go all the way back to Descartes, who, I think therefore I am, where he kind of took that to an extreme.
What was his
where he doubted everything.
Yeah.
But he ended up saying, well, since I'm here, I think therefore I am, there's got to be something, kind of thing. Hume was kind of known as the ultimate skeptic, as far as I'm concerned. And he was the one that woke Kant from his dogmatic slumber, as he said. So
Explain that
Kant,
dynamic to me.
well, Hume said that we couldn't be as certain of something as certain as a cue ball hitting another ball. So if you hit a cue ball and it hits a ball and it ricochets off, something, the cause and effect there, even something that tight, you can't be certain that the cue ball hitting that ball caused that ball to go.
Hmm.
So,
Okay. I guess I'll take that
so
as
this is, I don't want
logical.
to
I
get,
mean, is that
here's a
stupid?
rabbit
Is that a
hole.
stupid observation by Hume?
No, because you got to remember that when you see a cue ball, you're seeing the light frequencies going into your head, and that image is in your brain is creating that image. Your brain is creating that reality. That's pretty much what Kant came up with, although he may not have been the first. But I was fascinated with that. I learned that.
So what are they saying there, though? What are they saying there? What are they saying? They're saying some alien god might have moved the cue ball and put the image as if it was your friend hitting the cue ball instead. Is simply that?
Exactly. According to Descartes, he allowed for what he called the evil demon, someone who was doing this stuff, running you through, making you see things that weren't there. So yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So who? So Kant woke Hume from the slumber, or was it the other way around?
Hume was first. Well, Kant credits Hume for kind of the idea, but Kant really took it. He wrote Critique of Pure Reason, probably one of the most important philosophical works ever.
What is it? What's the
which is really
gist
about
of it?
this. It's about
this.
yeah.
So tell me more about philosophy and how it relates to your life and your passions and the poison now.
Well, the poison. I think getting into postmodernism and going back to this idea that I did this set arguing that DJ mixes postmodern art. I've been kind of fascinated with postmodernism. So postmodernism, I would say, is this kind of realization that, Kant's insight that we can't know reality. Our reality is a construction of our own brains. And we also get into Einstein, the theory of relativity. So if you look at from the modernist lens, things were very, we started getting scientific and making a lot of advancements, and we were really sure about a lot of things, or thought we were. And you could kind of think of that as modernism. Postmodernism was when we started realizing we didn't know as much as we thought, or as we learned more, we realized, kind of along the lines of the more you learn, the less you know. The more you learn, the more you know you need to learn, kind of thing.
Right. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Nothing wrong with it. Postmodernism is difficult, but I would contend that postmodernism has been weaponized. So a lot of people are just negative about postmodernism, which I think is wrong.
Because people associate that with moral relativism, then the distortion of truth.
Yes.
And there's a logic to that. But you're saying it's not necessary. So how has it been poisoned?
Well, I think postmodernism is a reality. The theory of relativity, time is immutable. And you could go to my page. I have essays on this, 5-minute essays. In one essay, I argue that I doubt 2 + 2 = 5. I got a 5-minute essay about that. The channel's Dragon's Lair, just like Dragon.
Right.
Apostrophe S Lair, Lair.
Okay.
So that's a reality that we have to contend with. But people can then take that kind of epistemological doubt and weaponize it. So it's a good example of things that have been weaponized, but it's almost like everything's been weaponized.
So does Nietzsche fall? Is this a good time to bring him up?
Or no? Nietzsche.
Is he relevant? Is he relevant to this conversation about?
I think so. I think he's. It's been attributed to him that he was kind of part of that postmodernism Um,
Mm-hmm.
with Nietzsche, we get back into the two hemispheres of the brain. And I think this is another thing that a good thing to bring up that's been weaponized is the whole, you know what continental philosophy is?
Never heard of that phrase.
Okay. Continental philosophy versus analytical philosophy. It's kind of two schools. And I almost think of it as the left brain versus the right brain. It's almost like you have people who are right brain oriented
Right.
and they're defending that, the creative, and then you have the left brain people who are defending that and they're attacking. So you have this war going on between the continental philosophers and the analytical philosophers.
Mm.
And my assertion would be that we need both. And this gets back to getting the artistic expression to get the two hemispheres in harmony. That's the first start is to find harmony in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And but we have this war going on, and I don't really see. Well, I see why, because they're using everything they can to create division, and
Yeah, I mean,
but
well,
so
go
Nietzsche's a
ahead.
big player in that. He's a big on the continental.
Anything else you want to add about him?
Uh, I kind of wanted to bring up maybe about Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson was talking about Nietzsche, and you've been studying Nietzsche through
Mm-hmm.
Peterson's program, right?
Yes, yes.
I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peterson's. I think if there was one person that I could pick to talk to, it might be him.
I think you're right. I think you're damn well. I think me too,
He's
man. Just his interest in his intellectual interest, forget his capacity, but his
yeah.
interest in the brain, in the soul, in in wanting to understand this phenomenon of life and not wanting to be shy away from opinions or beliefs or stances, but also not wanting to be dogmatic. I mean, yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's the guy, the storyteller, the studier of symbols, the master of Jung and Nietzsche. It's been amazing, listening to him, and the other courses I'm still plowing through them on the Peterson Academy. And one of them, Baumeister, Dr. Roy Baumeister. Actually, I think it was the first one I took when
Mhm.
this was a couple months ago now, on sociology, or no, psychology, and talking about. So he didn't really talk in terms of the left and right hemisphere, but he was talking about how basically, yes, both are necessary, both sides, balance, harmony in the body, in the social body politic. So of course you need both redistribution and
Mhm.
wealth creation, and so might the perfect system might not be something that harmonizes both, and so that's of course reasonable, but it's not. How do you sell that? I believe in harmony between the two political sides. My political ideology is balance. I
Well,
mean,
maybe that's kind of where Nietzsche comes in, because Nietzsche is famous for you heard of the Apollonia, maybe Apollonian Dionysian.
Peterson
Uh,
touched upon that. The two sides of the brain. That's basically the two parts of the soul, right? The artistic
well,
side.
yeah, I'm not sure how if a lot of people would agree with that. I'm not saying I made that theory up. I certainly didn't, but I know Nietzsche, I don't think, was aware of the two hemispheres. But
Hmm.
looking at how he was, very poetic, very uh,
Yeah, romantic.
romantic.
Hmm.
Um, I think he's a big one on the continental side, and
So
this is
continental.
where
So continental is more. Give me what was the difference between continental and analytical
con-
again?
continental. Uh, the name, I believe, came from the fact that the continentals kind of started in uh, Europe, Germany. Eventually, a lot of them ended up here. Um, a lot of the postmoderns, like Foucault and uh, who are the postmoderns? Derrida, but I think Derrida was American. I mean, this is where this would be a
Well,
good time to make a
what
comparison.
characterized their thinking?
It's very right brainish, I would say. Very creative, very poetic, very romantic.
I see.
Where but they then scorn a lot of rationality. That's kind of where the beginnings of this the feud between the Continentals and the Analytics.
And what is the ultimate feud crystallized between the two sides?
Well, I think it keeps. I mean, if there's one thing that I'm trying to put forth is the idea that you need both. If you have, uh, and this is where we get back to the education. You ever hear of STEAM education? You've heard of
I
STEM
think I might have, yes, right? So
with art, STEAM.
Okay.
I mean, I would argue that STEAM is invention, that you're using art along with STEM. You're using creativity to solve a utility problem. That is exactly what a invention is. I mean, if you got a patent, the patent office gives you a monopoly for having something that's unobvious. There are several requirements, but one of them is that it's unobvious to someone skilled in the art. So you're talking about someone who's in the field, who's done it their whole life. You're not going to get a patent on something in theory unless this is unobvious to that person. So that's where an inventor comes in. You know, the inventor is someone
That's the
who
innovation.
has to come in as someone who maybe isn't, you know, as versed as an expert in that field, and yet come up with something.
Right.
So that is where this becomes important, because you need creativity to do that, but you also need analytical skills. And it's almost like I see people, rather than embracing and using the two, and they become very powerful working together, I think. They end up, you know, you have your art teacher who brags about the fact that she doesn't know anything about science because she's so involved in art, but she has the creative ability maybe to invent if she knew something about science.
Right.
And then you have the scientist or
pollinating and
exactly. Great way to look at it. Yes. So that's where the battle between these is really damaging, because there is so much potential power there that isn't being used. And as a matter of fact, this is kind of where, you know, I say I'm an inventor. We could get into some of the stuff I've done, but my NFT project was a failure. Basically, I haven't had a successful invention. So I'm kind of a person who's had to go out to the work field and work, and I invent, you know, on the side. But part of that, I think, is because industry is so bad at recognizing people who have that ability and you know, looking for it. People don't understand the power. So, you know, here I'm kind of arguing that we need to do this theme more, that you should have this cross pollination, as you said. And I can put myself forward as a example of that. I have documented, you know, I have a patent, and yet I've been an abysmal failure, kind of. And I, you know, I have to take my part of the blame for that. And I've made a great life anyway. But I also would put a lot of the blame on the academia and human resources, and it's just like we're not paying attention. I mean, even if you look in the schools, you have the art departments and the science departments so separated. Even the computers, as they relate, you have computers where they're maybe using computers in engineering or CAD, and or they're using computers in business, and that's a whole different thing. And there's kind of a lack of putting those things together. So I think that's something that
So in terms of politics, I know we don't worship politicians around here, but they're interesting people and the roles they play in society, and you know, they're representatives, and you know, it's important politics. It's interesting. So is there someone who embodies this? If the philosophy is to take the good parts of both sides and be, be balanced, and whatever that ends up being, centrism or the middle way, or you know the blend of all the right blend. Is there someone
I can't
who
think of
appeals to
anybody.
us?
I can't think
Nobody.
of anybody. It's almost like
Over the
everybody
last
gets in
50
their corner.
years,
And it what?
in
What
the
was that
last
last one?
50 years, anybody who
Well,
you go, you know what? That's how you do it.
50 years. Boy, I couldn't think of anybody.
So
And I
are
mean,
we
to
a
go back that far,
libertarian?
even if you kind of could come up with someone, say, 30 years ago or 50 years ago that had it right. I mean, we're so far off course at this point that it almost doesn't really matter. Although I guess that would be instructive. Um, I would agree with you more broadly. I mean, I consider myself a constitutional moderate. So I'm very pro Constitution.
Mm,
I'm small government classic liberal,
yep.
but you get guys like Rand Paul. Uh, I was a big Ron Paul fan, but or Thomas Massey. Thomas Massey's an inventor, and he's a libertarian type. But I just think those guys go too far. Uh, and I think a lot of libertarian types go back to Brent. I was on Brent's show. Brent, Aiming Up,
Yeah.
Aiming
Yeah.
Up podcast.
Freeman. Yeah. Good guy.
I mean,
Talk about hard on me, but sweet.
yeah, he seems like a great guy, but I couldn't get through to him. And
Mm.
uh, he's just way too far.
Yeah, I mean that's a guy who's the principles drive the train, and searching for political identity. The former name of this podcast was like a search for the
Hmm.
principles, and then and you end up in the arms of a guy like Trump who has maybe no principles, but is there a virtue to that? So
Trump, yeah, Trump
the
is trumping.
principles, obviously they're important, but do they always take center stage versus practicality?
That's really tough. And Trump. I mean, as far as I think Trump's probably the best. I mean, if I had to pick someone,
Mm.
it would be Trump
Well,
because
that's the argument, in the glass half full version. I would say is Trump is that guy. He's the bull in the china shop. He's a blend of both sides, and
right,
he's distasteful, but he's kind of he's our asshole.
right.
I'm a damn fan. I feel like one of these people with the smoke detector going off. Sorry, man.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
no
know.
problem, no problem. But Trump is what I consider progressive. Trump is a big guy, big government guy. He think of the Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the ring that controls it all. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah, and what's the allegory there? So I haven't read the books, but the ring represents, what does the ring represent? Government? It
Ring
represents
represents
power.
power that no one
State
can
power?
control.
State
Yeah,
power.
I mean, yeah,
I think,
I think
yeah,
it can be looked at that way. I mean, it's a in the movie it's a magical thing that,
right.
and the
But the
kind of the
metaphor
stronger.
is the metaphor widely understood to be a metaphor for like libertarianism versus strong government, or is that me?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a metaphor for big government, to
Yeah,
where you're accumulating power in a centralized form,
right.
and no one is able to wield that power
Unchecked.
morally. Or
Hmm.
it seems like either people that get the power become corrupted, or
Hmm.
corrupt people are the ones seeking the power.
Power corrupts. Absolute power. That
Power,
whole thing.
right? So I mean, how many have avoided that trap in history? I know of only two: Cincinnatus and George Washington, who actually walked
Yeah,
away from power. Who
right.
George Washington handed power over to the people and walked away. They wanted him to be king, and he refused. We need
Right.
that now. We need Trump to do that now. We need Elon Musk to do that now. We need Peter Thiel to do that now.
Right.
And I don't know if they're doing it. I mean, I wanted to bring up Peter Thiel because he seems uh,
What do you think his role is to play in all this?
well.
And you know what? Hold that thought because I want to pause this and make sure this damn thing doesn't go off again. So we'll come
Okay,
back with 1 second and we'll pick it up on Peter Thiel. One
sure.
sec. And we're back. The inventor guided me to hopefully successfully disabling this fucking ceiling fan. Excuse my language, but we let it out. We let it breathe.
Uh,
So picking up on Peter Thiel, what's his role in all this, you think?
Peter Thiel. Obviously he's a very bright, very successful guy. But man, I just think he's on the wrong track. I would, and I have an essay about. Uh, it talks. The essay is about basically big government, just people not people using different excuses to want to accumulate power, and
Well,
then once people
Palantir,
get it,
right? And he's,
Palantir. Yeah, I mean, very
right?
scary stuff. I can't say what he's doing, or if or necessarily that he won't be able to turn that to the good somehow.
Right.
I think he's trying to do it, but he's, as I understand it, an avowed monopolist, and I am extremely against that. I'm for competition, for free
Mm.
enterprise.
Well, that
Uh,
particular point, we'll have to dig on. What do you mean? But he's a monopolist. He believes in unchecked corporate power.
well, he believes that competition gets in the way. That he's so busy, maybe fending off competition.
Mm.
At my understanding of it, that he can't
So that makes
properly
sense. That
do
he's if he's
what
all
needs to
about
be
the
done.
efficiency. You're wasting my
Exactly, he's all
time.
about the
Let me
efficiency.
do my job. Let my company do our
Right,
function,
right,
efficiency, and you have, from what I understand loosely, bringing Palantir into the government. It's a Doge. It's let's internalize, it's automatize everything,
right.
every record. Why not? I mean, hey, isn't that the future? It's reasonable. Why wouldn't you? Well, why wouldn't you do that? Well, the trade-off security technology for,
Mhm.
efficiency for security and freedom. So it's a huge thing, and the big conversation right now about flock cameras. I thought Mike, you probably
Yeah,
know Mike Termott. I thought he had a great article. He has a nice little newsletter that comes out every couple of days, and he
Brett
had a good
Weinstein's been
piece.
rallying about that too.
Who has?
Brett Weinstein, Dr. Brett Weinstein.
Mm. Yeah, he had a good Mike had a really because Mike's a former cop, so really good
Yeah.
perspective. Highly recommend that this week's newsletter from Mike Termott. Um, so he makes a distinction between, if you're already on a record on a bad list, for example, in other words, so okay, there's a difference between tracking somebody who's on a list to be tracked versus collecting records and being able to recreate someone's life who was never on a list to begin with. That can't be, acceptable. It's scary, but technology and politics is one of the most interesting things for me
Yeah.
because, on one hand, if we're old school constitutionalists, like I like to think I am, coming out of law school, that's kind of my bent. But
Hmm.
and so under that theory, technology really shouldn't have an impact on the Constitution. It's really not a living document, and it's supposed to apply no matter what the technology is, and
Hmm.
the principles should extend no matter what the technological environment. And so your rights are your rights. That is
Right.
very attractive, and that's where I live.
Hmm.
But it kind of does beg the question, like, is this technological change so profound that the situation is just not what it used to be? It's a whole new ground.
Well, I think if you look at theories of government, I don't think it's very much debatable that if you could get a beneficent ruler who you knew could handle the power and who would do the right thing, that would be obviously the most efficient way to do things.
Philosopher King, right?
I mean, our constitutional system is made to make things difficult because its primary mission is to check power.
Because we don't
And
believe
so,
that people are such angels.
yeah, that people get basically back to the Lord of the Rings thing. The
Hmm.
founders just assumed we couldn't handle the power, and until we can, we need a
Hmm.
system to check power.
Hmm.
Um, and I
And that's the
think
thing with progressives. Progressives say, no, we can perfect the human
right,
person, we can perfect the society.
but look what's
Let's
happened.
accumulate that power by any
Right,
means necessary, and let's get our laws made at the court. If we can't get it done through the legislature, we'll get it done through the executive. If we can't get it done through the executive, we'll get it through the legislative. It's like, wait a minute, that wasn't supposed to be the design.
right,
And so
right,
you can
absolutely.
understand, hey, they're like Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel's like a progressive, I guess. All I'm doing is defending what little power I have. I should have all the power, and I can
Right,
fix this for you.
and he might be able to do it. He could be that beneficent ruler who uses the power well. And I'm not even sure we're going to get out of the mess we're in without somebody like Trump or Musk or Thiel to be that strong man who fixes things and gives it back to the people, who writes the ship for the people. But I don't
What do
think
you
we're in
think is the
that
main wrong
mode
thing
right
with
now.
our society today?
What? Say
What
that
do you
again.
think is the main problem in our society today that a guy might need to fix like that?
Well, I think um, we're being sabotaged. I think the elites have. corralled power, and part of their program. Have you ever heard of the Prussian theory of education? The idea that education is used to make good workers rather than people who can
Yeah,
think
certainly
critically.
heard of that. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people would argue that we've devolved to the point where we're not even capable of governing ourselves. But whose fault was that? I mean, that was the education system.
So you're looking back and you're just saying, hey, look, 30,000 feet, we're dumber. We don't seem to be
Yeah,
smarter. We don't seem to have better outcomes. Something is freaking wrong here.
right, right. And
We're better than this.
I think they're doing it on purpose, and I think that's the problem. I invented a word. Talk about being an inventor. I invented a word, Witquost, and it's an acronym. It runs. It's a thread that runs through my essays. I wrote a song about it, all on my channel. Witquost stands for wallowing in the quagmire of self-delusion, and that's what I think is the problem. I think you have these elites who are wallowing in. They're not seeing the bigger picture. They're not seeing what life and are you familiar with the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy? Ever heard of that?
Yes.
I,
Roughly.
I would say the Maslow's,
hierarchy of needs, right? Yeah.
yeah, I would say that broadly speaking, the human goal is to climb Maslow's hierarchy and achieve self-actualization and transcendence.
Hmm.
And I think the problem is that people aren't doing that. People are stuck down in the lower, there's the 6 levels of physical, safety. Probably couldn't even get them all.
Jamie, put that on the screen. All right, we don't have a fucking Jamie.
Social. I'm missing one, but anyway, you're climbing up. I actually did an essay on this.
Like Brent would say.
Yeah, I did an essay on this where I had Grok rank society. So Maslow's hierarchy, they're the 6 levels. Let's say for each level, you looked at every person in the world, where they are on that scale on 1 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then you average the entire population of the world. Mm-hmm. What do you think our score would be? What do you think Grok gave us?
You said, what was the prompt? What was the question?
I asked him. I asked Grok if what our average score was, to kind of hypothesize about on a scale of 1 to 6.
To rank every person in
you'd have to rank every person in the world on a scale of 1 to 6.
Okay.
And then you take the average of the entire population.
So what was America's?
Well,
it's like that's the
basically
question,
what Grok did was he divided it into 2/5 third world, 2/5 kind of part way, and then 1/5 first world. So America, he had maybe at a 4, but the average for the world was only 2.6. And this is what I would contend is we've been sabotaged. So we aren't getting smarter. Education isn't doing that job, and we're wallowing in this quagmire of failing. We're at 2.6. And a lot of it is because the elites are taking all the resources and they're not exercising them responsibly. And I would argue that not only is that horrible for the world, but it's horrible for them personally, because fulfillment comes, as Maslow would say, fulfillment comes by reaching those higher goals.
So this is a redistribution argument.
No.
This is a progressive economic argument.
No. Because what is it? It's maybe a progressive education, because education is where, I mean, if we want to turn this around and we want we the people govern, the first thing we have to do is fix the education system. And that's going to be a long haul to fix it. And then it's going to take, however many years or decades to get the population to where they should be. So we're just in horrible shape. But this is where, and I go back to Jordan Peterson, because I as much as I admire him, I think he's on the wrong path.
How so?
because I think he's on this. I think he's accepted the fact that the population can't govern themselves, that we've declined to the point where we just can't do it anymore. And so that's where the whole religion thing comes in, which is a big trend now, where we're going back into religion. And I think
Charlie
that's
Kirk murder.
right. And so that's where I would bring up
What are your thoughts on Peterson's embrace of religion and use of it, and the generally large? What's going on?
I think it's a huge problem. We go back to Voltaire, Spinoza, Thomas Jefferson, even.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah,
What's
if
the
you would
problem?
look at things in terms of pre-modern, modern, and postmodern.
Okay.
The modern represents this liberalism, classic liberalism, is where the person, the sovereignty of the person is supreme. So in pre-modernism was there was a religion. There was a lot more collectivist tribalism that way
Okay.
in pre-modern, and we managed to kind of get past that into modern. But then we hit pre-modernism, and it's
Or
almost
post
like
rather.
now we're slipping into collectivism the other way. And you even have a battle between what I would say the Marxists versus the Christians. And they're both kind of diverging out of modernism. Classic liberalism is what we want to be. We want
We could modernism / individualism, you might say.
yes, but
A slide back to collectivism,
yep, to where
either
Peterson's
through the
saying,
power
okay,
of
well
the
these
state, or the collective, or the church, or the religious group, God,
right,
God.
but like where those organizations or the smart people decide,
Seeding
because
power, seeding sovereignty.
yeah, because they don't think the great unwashed masses are smart enough to do it anymore, and they got a point
But
because
there's plenty of
education's been
people, I
declining
think,
for
who.
decades. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of your thought because I spoke over you. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
Can you say that again?
I would say that they think that we're not smart enough, the great unwashed masses,
Okay.
to rule ourselves, to make decisions. So they're they want to put us back in the matrix.
Mm.
You know what I mean by the matrix?
Well, in this case, I think what you mean is where they control things and we just accept them.
Right.
And what that might mean practically is, you know, sort of feudalism, where people don't have the freedom to earn as much as they might be able to,
Right.
something like that.
Well, yeah, where they're taking care of things, and uh, and so that's kind of stemming from a communistic, socialistic, collectivist. But when you're looking at whether it's Democrat or Republican, Republicans are in that same vein. They're just kind of going a different way.
But there are plenty. So what I was going to say is there are plenty of conservatives. Obviously, there are plenty of people on the left who are not marching full blast towards Marxism. We have to recognize that. I
Mm-hmm.
think, but I would say most of much less than on the right, going towards. So what I'm meaning to say is, on the right as well, there are plenty of God-fearing religious people who don't necessarily want church and state to be intertwined, who can
Right,
say,
and
hey,
neither do I.
God is the foundation of this classical liberal American society that we have, so that can all be fine and dandy.
Well, no, I would be careful there. I would say the Christian ethic was founded, but not necessarily Christianity. And I would point to Thomas Jefferson for that. Are you familiar with the Jefferson Bible?
Yeah, vaguely, yeah. So he rewrote it. He took out the references
He
to.
actually cut and pasted, took out all the supernatural stuff.
Hmm.
So I would be very much for that. And I'm not saying, I'm a skeptic. I just told you I wrote an essay where I doubted 2 + 2, or I'm putting forth the argument that I'm doubting 2 + 2 = 5, something that. So I'm certainly not going to say that I doubt God. Matter of fact, I believe in God. I believe God is logically, it is, and it goes back to Descartes. I think therefore I am, therefore God exists. There was something made us. Something was always here, or something started. Aristotle's first prime mover. Something started itself somehow, and it eventually led to what we
So you're
see
not
now.
a pure materialist.
But I am a pure materialist, yes, because this something that always existed, or something that started itself, isn't necessarily non-materialist. So I'm right in the middle here. I'm on board very strongly with God, but kind of against religion. I'm a materialist, but
So you don't believe we have a soul?
No, I do not.
But Aristotle did, right?
I'm not sure.
Right.
Maybe so. I mean, philosophy for me, let me make another comparison from an inventor standpoint. I think of philosophers as inventors. So, like, we go back to Kant. Kant was kind of credited with the Critique of Pure Reason. He was the person who got that idea. So, if you, as an armchair philosopher, come up with that idea in your mind, you may think you invented it. A lot of times you come up with something you think is yours. You can almost be certain someone thought of it already, right? And the person who thought of that, or who gets credit for it, is kind of the inventor of that thing. So Kant kind of invented. He was the guy that kind of sorted that out and gets credit for it.
Right.
And now I kind of forgot where I was going with that.
I was going to ask you something. So I'm trying to jog my memory. It was something about God and the Bible.
Jefferson Bible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I even argue that it's possible that, I have an essay about this, that I break heaven down to equation, that it's possible that, and it's going to be hard to explain this, but this is kind of a secular notion of heaven that goes back, and I wouldn't say I invented it. And as far as I know, you want to guess who invented it? Nietzsche.
Right.
So back to Nietzsche we are. He talked about the eternal recurrence.
I was wondering if that was going to be it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
great idea. A great thought experiment.
Along those lines. I mean, I had that in my essay in 1993 that I wrote.
Right.
When I was
live as if you were to live this day on repeat every day. That's how you should live. That's virtue.
Right. So my idea is that if in the last seconds of your existence you knew whether you were on the right track or not, would be a heaven or hell. A heaven and hell.
The last seconds of existence.
Of your existence, right before you die.
You get shown which way you're going.
Your life flashes before your eyes. You've heard that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you either know you were bad or you know you were good, and you have to live with that. And it seems like you have to live with that for eternity in that moment.
So it flashes the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and that's what the feeling you live with in essence for eternity.
Yeah, it's not you end, but it seems to you like that's your eternity.
You just blank out on that lasting thought.
So this is a heaven, right? So this is a heaven based on the idea, a completely secular basis of heaven. No, so it's
what you make of it, and if you're good, it's heaven.
Right. And that this again comes down to not being Wittquost. Wittquost is being stuck in the lower levels of that Maslow's hierarchy. We want people to climb up, and that's where fulfillment comes. So if you have people wallowing in the lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy, they're
that's
not
Nietzschean, right? That's striving and reaching and overcoming and challenging yourself. And that's the argument against, as Peterson said, Nietzsche thought the what he viewed as the weak part of Christianity. Right. Don't just accept this is your fate and God said, and live your life and accept. Strive. Right. Go better. Be. And it's not necessarily conservative. It's not necessarily liberal. Progressive. It's reach. It's strive.
Right. And I am very on board with that. But the whole point of me bringing up this kind of stuff is a lot of philosophers I don't really know that well, like I'm sure I don't know Nietzsche as well as Jordan Peterson does because he has time. He's read all the books.
Oh yeah.
I've read a book or two of his, and I've studied a lot of commentary.
Mm.
And I agree with him, but I don't want to be putting words in Nietzsche's mouth. I mean, we're talking about my philosophy now, and it is a way for you to identify what I'm talking about. If I tell you it's similar to Nietzsche, because Nietzsche is a
So
publicly
tell
known
me,
thing.
so what is the essence of your philosophy then? To harmonize the both sides of the brain and to put the power back into the people and to
Yeah,
not let tribal to work together and not be distracted by the battles and divisions, to work together, to cross party lines, to cross social lines in the effort of furthering personal sovereignty.
yeah, that's pretty good. Um, we could really jump into the out of the frying pan into the fire. In one of the things that I uh, studied, researched, looked into was the idea that businesses are living entities.
Are what? Living entities?
Living entities.
Hmm.
Churches are living entities. As a matter of fact, I would say that a living entity cannot be a individual thing. Okay. So a married couple is a living entity.
Mm-hmm.
Any group where there's positive synergy based on
Cooperation.
right. So we have this. We're so uh, egocentric about our individualism, but I would say that a person is alive because of all the cells in their body are alive, and right.
Mm-hmm.
And a person is also parts of various organisms in the terms that I just laid out.
So what is an individual? Is there
An
such a thing?
individual is like that.
It's the
It's almost like
smallest. It's the smallest unit that you can measure self-sufficiency.
I'm not sure I would
How would you describe it?
I'm not sure I would describe it that way. An individual an individual in a sense is a god. He or a demon, an angel or a demon. An individual can be productive in the world. I call this the dragon quotient. I have essays about that in my but a person can either be productive or not productive. And if they're
Hmm.
productive, then they're achieving fulfillment. That's what we're all after. If they're not, then
But
they're
there could be negative production. There can be evil production.
right, right, and that gets
But they're
really
nonetheless
complicated.
productive and they're at least striving. You got to give them points for that. I mean, there's
Right.
something to be said for not, I mean, some people you wish would rather not be strivers and would have just sat in their bedroom twiddling their thumbs. But
Well, I think it's important everybody's making the most of what they have. I mean, I always think of it. You into sports car racing at all? You ever see those races where you have they're like street cars that are racing, but then you have the like Grand Am type of cars. So there's more
can't
than
say.
one class. There's more than one class in the race,
Okay.
and the full out race cars are going to win versus the GT cars.
Mm.
We're all people are like that. We're in different classes. We all have some people have more gifts than others.
Right.
It's not about what you have, it's about how you use what you have.
That's a big
So,
thing.
and this gets me back to Nietzsche because I really wonder Nietzsche I've understand has kind of been thought of as an elitist.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Nietzsche's philosophy is very much where he's telling everybody that they should do the best they can to become
And
the
that is a
the
direct
most
line
that
to
they can
Jordan
become.
Peterson, to the common modern conservative
Right.
movement, to you and I, to saying, hey, wait a minute. Being against social injustice is one thing,
Hmm.
but saying that treating everybody with kid gloves. All these participation to this culture as part of the culture
Right.
going off the wagon, like you would probably describe. It's like,
Yes.
guys, what happened to encouraging people and being a little tough and putting the kids out in the woods? And
Exactly.
this is
Tough.
not good.
Tough. That's the word. Tough love. That's
Yeah.
what we need more of. Tough love.
The frontier mentality, that's the thing.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
the conservatives really identify with more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything, it's the can-do attitude.
So I think it's important that if you're a trash man, there are trash
Best
men.
trash man.
Be the best trash man you can be. And that's, you will find fulfillment in that. You don't need to lament that you're not engineer. You're a trash man. And I think Nietzsche would respect that. Now, I'm not sure.
Absolutely. I think
and maybe
so
he
too.
wouldn't.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know, but it seems
if he wouldn't, then I would differ from Nietzsche there. I certainly
Right.
believe that it's important for the trash man to be the best trash man he can be, as it is for Peter Thiel, who is probably maybe the most important or the most consequential.
Right.
What he does is going to be more consequential. And so when you get a Peter Thiel, if Peter Thiel is Whitcoast, then we're in big trouble. And I think basically the problem with the world is the people who have the bigger responsibilities, who have the greater gifts, are failing so badly in getting out of the quagmire of self-delusion, of not becoming Whitcoast, of reaching those higher goals. I mean, if one regular guy is Whitcoast, it's not going to make a huge difference. You get 1 billion people are Whitcoast, that's a problem. But you get 1 billionaire that's Whitcoast, that's a problem for the world. And I don't know. I've studied Peter Thiel, and he worries me. He worries me. I'm not saying he's on the right track. I mean, he could. I don't know how things are going to turn out. I just see him.
The Antichrist thing. Did you follow
that? Yeah.
What was up with that?
I've been really looking into that, and it seems to me that a lot of rationalization going on, where he's trying to justify these what I consider dangerous positions, because he's fighting the Antichrist, so he has to be a monopolist and watch everybody or something. I don't know. Just it's concerning to me. And so my message, my message to anybody is don't be Whitcoast. That's the way to human fulfillment. But especially to Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, because they're the ones that are really going to determine how the world is. And that's the message I'm trying to get out.
Right track?
I don't know.
You like him?
I do, but I'm concerned about, less concerned than I am with Thiel, because the whole Antichrist thing in a nutshell. I mean, the monopolist thing, but and I don't know if they're wrong. I'm saying that the way forward is to fix the education, to start building everybody up, to get that collective.
You'd rather not jump right to concentrated corporate technological supreme power. You'd rather fix people's inputs.
Right. And if you're looking at someone like Peterson, or Brett Weinstein seems to be on board with Peterson's plan. I have great respect for Dr. Weinstein, but I think he's wrong for the same reasons. And we can go back to Voltaire, Jefferson, and Spinoza. The idea of, if you look at a jihad guy, a Muslim, who has on faith decided that he wants to kill Christians, if he's doing that on faith, then he is unreachable. You cannot ration with that guy. That is why faith is so dangerous. So, and if you want to look at a church, when you're looking at these organisms, I'm looking at things in terms of them being living organisms, businesses, churches, clubs, even groups of people. There's tremendous power in that. But the problem is the power is dangerous. That's where the ring. So when you collect power at a national level and give it to a few people, I mean, if they misuse that power, that's a huge problem. And what we're seeing is a tendency to misuse that power. I mean, we could, if we gave power if we accumulated power and we saw that a lot of people were using it wisely and making society better for everybody, that'd be great. That is not the case. The opposite is the case. The founding fathers have been proven right. People get their hands on power and they're witless, then they misuse that power. That is the problem with the world. So I'm talking to the people who have the power. You know, you're not here to lay on the beach and eat good food. You're here to do something. You're here to be productive. And whether you get Nietzsche's and my secular heaven, or maybe there is a real heaven, that someone you should be striving. And I was just listening to some podcast where they're talking about people who they get the money thinking the money is going to solve their problems, and then they're rich and they realize they still have the same problem. The solution to the problem is to get up that hierarchy and become useful to the world. That's how you find fulfillment.
It's very aiming up. It's very Brent
Very
Freeman,
aiming up.
except you're not pure libertarian, which is interesting because, you know, pure libertarian is pure classical liberal, pure individual, and you're
Right.
very high on that.
But
So
it's important that you use these groups, that you harness this
Cross-pollinate.
collectivist power. But it's dangerous. So the other side of the coin is having checks and balances to power, not centralizing it too much. At least until the human society has evolved enough to handle that power. I mean, I have a quote from Marx. I didn't know if we'd get to Marx,
of course we
but
will.
to each according to his ability, to each according to works. Now you've heard the other from to each according to his ability, or from each
Right,
according to
each
his
according
ability
to their need, probably something like
to
that.
their needs. You know, that second one's very famous, but this was from Henry D. St. Simon in 1829, who was, as far as I can tell, the first one who came up with that. And I would be on board with that. That's what I think. I think you should get what you deserve. And you need to give, you need to be a little more, you need to give more than you're taking.
Is
And
that message part of that? Because that's
yes, I think that's, and that was something that Nietzsche, or not, I'm sorry, Marx signed on with, as he called it, lower communism. And this was in the Soviet Constitution under Stalin. So when you get people that are just attacking Marxism, it's not that simple. And someone who is just gaslighting someone on Marxism and who really doesn't know the nuances of it, they're just kind of looking foolish. And I see that a lot. You know, where you have the libertarian types attacking the Marxist types, and the libertarians don't really know what they're talking about.
So along those, is that kind of part of the reason you differ philosophically from a Brent Freeman?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
not to repeat myself, but I just want to make sure I get your response. If he's pure libertarian, pure classical liberal, pure individual against any sort of collectivism,
Right.
but you're also, generally, a classical liberal yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you feel like you differ from him?
Well, because I think the collectivist aspect is so important. You're part of this achieving self-actualization is becoming alive with other people, working together with other people, that synergistic cooperation. And you can do that in all sorts of ways. I mean, the best way to look at it is in a married couple. If you find a woman or a partner who is 100% on board with meeting your needs, and you are 100% on board with meeting her needs, then there's a synergy there. It's like a back scratching.
Yeah.
If you have a partner that can scratch your back, it's much easier for them to scratch your back than it is for you to scratch your back.
Right.
And
the anarcho-capitalists, I think Brent would say, well, yeah, that's two people working together. They're right. They did it.
Right.
They came together. That's totally anarcho-capitalist.
Yes, but
so do we need a social? Do we need a government?
Well, I think we do, and this gets back to, and I'm not saying that the Constitution and our system couldn't be maybe updated. But I still think it's the best thing that's out there. And the idea is it needs to be, you want, the power needs to be checked and balanced. I would argue that, let's say a library, a public library, that's a socialist entity. That's something the government is taking taxes. All right.
Right.
Is
Public
the library a bad thing?
Right.
I would argue it isn't, because again, it's
Right.
it's so powerful. So you can have, so a lot of things I would say we could be doing at local levels. Like if you want to try UBI, I think the founders would be, you talk about the laboratory, states as laboratories for to experiment with things. You could have states that tried UBI, but if you implement it nationally, it could be a big problem if it doesn't work. We get this all the time where we implement something nationally and it doesn't work, and then we can't get rid of it. I just had an example flash in my mind, and I lost it.
Well, speaking of flashing in your mind, if it comes back to you, let me know. But let me ask you about a random topic.
Okay.
Aliens. UAPs. Bullshit. Something there. Secret advanced human technology. Are we being visited? But if so, by what?
I tell you what, as a skeptic, I'll go back to my 2 + 2 = 5 thing. If I'm as skeptical of something as obvious as 2 + 2 = 4, I certainly can't. So
Go on board with aliens without more evidence.
well, but what I can't say is that they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I would say, I'm kind of a tech geek, so I follow science a lot, technology. There's a lot of weird things going on in technology. Like for example, I've heard recently that we've cracked gravity, that we can now. So
Oh, I believe, and I've certainly believe it. Yeah.
I've also heard some things along the lines of new perspectives on reality that are so radical that,
What do you mean?
I mean, so all that's possible.
What do you mean by that, though? Like, what did you hear? New perspectives on reality.
I heard something really interesting just recently where they were talking about, I mean, basically as reality being like just a quantum foam, that time is an illusion, and it's kind of all about entropy. Or so I would say, and this is in my essays too, I've argued that life is just defeating entropy. So the idea that entropy,
is
which
what,
is
the
just
expenditure
heat
of
transfer,
energy, right?
huh? Yeah, transfer of energy. Yeah, where you get the illusion of time over the transfer of energy, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Donald Hoffman, he's a big proponent of kind of the idea that reality is beyond us, and we have like an interface that we work with. That our interface is like the icons on the computer that we use to run the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of weird things. But to answer your question about the aliens, I think that's all. You've heard of Project Bluebeam? I know you have, because I mentioned it on Twitter. I think that you talk about postmodernism being weaponized, or the debate between or religion being weaponized. I think the alien thing is another weaponization of something, where they're preparing us. They're seeding the ground for when they're gonna
take over and take our rights.
Yeah, I mean, you have these people who, as I understand it, want to take a world government, and this is in their playbook. This is a known thing,
right,
where they're going to try to use the alien thing to scare everybody into accepting a world government.
We'll talk about like I said, the relationship between technology and politics. That would be the ultimate trump card. Hey,
right,
we got visitors from out of town. They've got technology that is magical to us. We're in a new ballgame, folks.
Yeah,
the Constitution no longer applies. Everything is fucking couple
Right.
grabs.
In my channel, one of the essays, sometimes I just narrate things. I've narrated
I was going
tweets
to
or
ask you,
just,
how do you produce those?
I'm just a movie program. So
So you type in a prompt, or you type in a whole
I type in
essay?
a prompt, I get a sound file, and then I just put a background, which is one of my NFTs is my background.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it. So I can generate an essay using AI, but sometimes I hear something that's just good. I just narrate that, and I'm using a AI voice.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and Dr. Brett Weinstein gave a speech to Congress that I narrated, and I would recommend
Why did you choose that one?
because he made a really good point where he kind of sums everything very well, the current status, and this was back when Biden was still president.
Mm-hmm.
But he makes the point that with technology improving, that's going to make it easier for the few to rule the many. I'm not even going to try to put it like he did it,
No,
but he
it's
made
well
that
said,
point.
yeah. Right.
He made that point very well. I think that's extremely important. So at this point,
But you
with
also don't want to resist technology.
right,
That's why it's
but
so
I mean
interesting.
it really depends on people getting on the ball. We have to
Yeah, you're
realize.
right.
I mean, you have to realize that. And you know, I hate to be a pessimist, but I think we're toast. I just don't think we're gonna be able to recover.
You think humans are going to be extinct, Toast?
I I, I would say either that or enslaved
By technology.
by technology and the elites who get control of it.
Well, did you see the robotic hand? You know, the headline today about the hands getting really good on some of these robots? And Elon has always
No,
said that's the. I'm sure you've heard little
although
bits about Elon always focusing on the hands. They're so important, the most difficult part of the robot. And
yeah,
I saw something today where like they were just showing off the newest, and they're like almost exceeds human capabilities now. And I was
right,
like,
right.
oh fuck, man.
I mean, we could
You
do a whole
put
episode
technology.
on this
You
whole
put
idea.
intelligence, you put a super intelligence into a humanoid robot, you know,
Right. I got a couple essays on that too. Um,
what's the gist of them?
you know, I did
What's up?
one where I was saying you shouldn't be afraid about AI because I'm just not sure it really matters if the human race continues that much, or that
Hmm.
we should be that much against what we may evolve into.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand,
Interesting.
the very next essay was why you should be very afraid, where I articulated all the dangers, and you know we don't want to be. This is the problem. You have so many of these people who are elites who became elites just because they cheated, and I'm a very pro-capitalist guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there are a lot of people who they're like anybody else. You have Whitquote's business people and enlightened business people there are business people who are doing great things and earning what they make, and then you have people that are just crooks that are screwing people over and taking large sums of money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot where I was going with that now.
Distorting the market, distorting the social
Yeah.
fabric, screwing things up.
So yeah, so I kind of think we're done, and I don't think going back to pre-modernism religion, as Peterson and Weinstein seem to think is the answer, is
Mm-hmm.
the answer. But I don't think, and you know, Marxism. I don't think Marxism at the federal level. This is part of the problem with Marx, and I don't think Marx was a. I doubt whether Marx was a good agent. Uh,
A
I
good
think
what?
was a good agent. I think he basically was a demagogue who was spouting this stuff to keep himself in expensive cigars and
Hmm.
whatever he liked to drink.
That was a fun course through the Peterson Academy. I think his name was Paul Kroger. Taught it.
Mm.
Dark Side of
Yeah,
Marxism. That was a good one. I don't know if you caught
but
that
you know,
one.
Marx, I think more than anybody, and I give him credit for this. You know, you talk about the surplus that you get from the cooperation of a living entity, whatever it is, a business. I think Marx captured that in his equation M equals C equals M prime.
Hmm.
And I think that's
What's
what
that
it's all
from?
about.
Is that from Das Kapital?
Yeah.
There I go.
So, I would, like I said, I doubt whether Marx was a good agent, but it is not just as easy to say Marx was full of shit and he didn't know what he was talking about. That's not true. He did.
So nuance. So nuance. The
Nuance is so
smartest people I
important here.
knew talk about nuance. And how
So
do you?
we want to harness the power of cooperation. I would even call that socialism. If you steal man with the left, with the radical left, think about socialism. We know what the dictionary says. It's when the government does things, right? But the left have this utopian view of what socialism is. I mean, I could steal man to the point where I agree, where I see every cooperation, every surplus that we get from a cooperation, whether it's in a marriage, in a business, in a church, is socialism, and it's that positive thing. But what we don't understand is the flip side is so dangerous. Power, that cooperation is so powerful that if it's not used morally, which is why until we can know that we're going to get that beneficent ruler, we can't trust anybody, because history has shown over and over again that people just can't handle that much power.
Well, wasn't it in the Plato's The Republic? And I never read it, and I'm just going off of what I read about it. Didn't he say that the philosopher king will never get one, and that's why we have to have a democracy or something like that, or maybe he wanted an aristocracy, but
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's safe to say that he put forth that idea of the potential of the beneficent ruler, the philosopher king.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a whole program, which I think is pretty nutso if you look at it now, to get to that point. So I think maybe he did think that we were, and that was the best way to go. I think he's been proven. If that's the case, I think he's very wrong.
Right.
But that's only because the human society, the human animal, hasn't evolved to that point. So, I mean, you might argue that if I'm saying that we all need to get a few levels up on the hierarchy, we need to get the collective average way up.
What does that look like? That's what I want to know.
Exactly. In that sense, Marx might be right. We could go on from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. If everybody was on board with being a positive and everybody was self-actuated, I think that would work. So you might argue that Marx was just way ahead of his.
And that's the thing. That right there. The difference between saying, that's a good idea, let's do it, versus that would be great if everyone was self-actualized.
Right, which they're not. We know they're not. Right. We know people are abusing power.
And it's the perception of human nature that is really the difference between what political philosophy you'll believe in, and what we have in America, like we said earlier, is classically liberal. It's not progressive in the sense that it doesn't assume the best.
Now say that again.
It doesn't assume the best of our human nature. That's why it splits up the power.
I might almost argue the opposite. I think we're assuming the best of the human nature when we can't afford to do so, which is why we keep assembling power progressively.
Well, I'm saying what our founders envisioned versus what we have now.
Say that one more time.
What our founders envisioned versus what we have now.
Yep.
So I'm talking about our founders. Our founders envisioned something that did not have the rosiest picture of human nature.
Right. So they built a system allowing for this problematic nature of human nature.
Right.
And we didn't listen. And so I'm not saying that they maybe didn't hope that someday we would get beyond it. I mean, they were very astute philosophically. I think they were very well read. But at this point in time, we're not there. What we're seeing is the opposite. We accumulate power to give it to the smart people to take care of things. And not only are they not taking care of things, they're actually using it to weaponize against us. It'd be bad enough if they were just taking the money and going to the beach and not doing anything. They're actually weaponizing everything against us. So long as you have that many people that are that confused, we need to have a system to check power, which is what the founders gave us and what we abandoned. That's what I think.
I think this is a perfect place to land it, my friend. I think that really hit home for me.
Oh, very
The
good.
relation, that's what I just wrote down, the relationship between human nature and political philosophy. And more than technology, it's the human nature that
Hmm.
determines what's
Yeah.
appropriate.
And
I
philosophy, yeah,
think,
is so important. It's so important. Yeah, like I said, it's been weaponized, it's been poisoned, but you still got to work around that. You know, digging through that. I would start with my essays, um, because I've done a lot of work. I've gone through a
Dragon's
lot of that.
Lair, like it's spelled right here, plus or
Dragon's Lair,
apostrophe,
yep.
space Lair, Lair.
But uh, it's so important. I mean, right now it's the philosophers that are failing us. The philosophers are the
Mm,
ones that should keep us on the right course, and
mm.
we are. They're not. They have failed miserably because we're so
Hmm.
far off course right now. So
It's interesting, man. No, this has been
I
great.
would.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no, it's perfect. It was a
I,
perfect fit for, what I'm trying to do, explore identity, politics, morality. So this is,
and I'd be happy to come back. I
please,
think I could play a role as devil's advocate. We could talk about specific people.
right?
Um, like Peterson again. I'm such a fan, but I think he's so far on the wrong track right now. We could do a whole
Yeah, I'd
episode
love to
about
do
that.
that. I'd love to do that,
Very good.
Well, and because I know it would be in the spirit of getting to the idea. It's not for the sake of talking about people. It's not like you're a gossip guy.
Right, right. Yeah, right, right.
It's the idea.
No,
So it would be a productive and useful thing. And so that sounds
yeah,
great, man. Let's do it. I'll be in
yeah. Sounds
touch.
good. Yeah, thank you so much
But
for having me.
otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day. Any big
You
plans
too.
this weekend?
Nope. I'm,
Just gonna tinker around the invention shop.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of a homebody. I like to, uh, yeah, tinker around with stuff and
Me too. Me too. You watch you like movies?
mix some music. Yeah, I like movies too.
Right on.
Uh,
Art. You're an
yep,
artistic guy.
love art.
Yeah, and art is not just it's things. It's not just
It
music or
is.
movies. It's crafts, right?
If
So the tech,
I think everybody has to sort that out for themselves, but I think it's really important for the balance. Everybody's different, but I think for the vast majority of people to have that outlet, uh,
so they
you
can
know, the,
level up.
yeah, so you can level up. But the right side of the brain is mute; they can't speak. I mean, I think of art as just the language of the right side of the brain.
Hmm,
When someone produces a work of art, they're communicating directly with your right brain.
right.
And it's so hard, it's so important to give that a voice.
Time of day. Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But I really appreciate the chance to be on. I feel a responsibility. Like I said, I've been studying this for 35, 40 years. I've come to some conclusions. I'm not saying I'm right, but I don't get I haven't got any pushback. So I really need some critique. I would certainly like to know where I'm
Yeah. Well,
wrong if
maybe
anybody
I'd
thinks
love.
I'm wrong.
Maybe
And
we'll get some. That would be amazing if we got some
yeah,
comments on. That would be
that's a
cool.
challenge to your listeners.
Right. Absolutely. Again, this has been so helpful, man. It's just like exactly what I was looking for. It's
Awesome. So
I'm
glad I
on
could
it,
help.
truly still on a search for a political identity, truthfully.
You know,
And
we could go back to you were talking about what I think of your journey,
yeah,
and what I see is you're like everybody else. You can't get the information. I mean,
mm,
it's hard to even
mm.
you know. I, I'll ask you the same question. Who would you point to as a person you think's on the right track?
Well, I mean,
Nah, maybe we shouldn't start that at this point in
well,
time.
no,
But
I mean, I'll answer, but let me think about that.
I think you're just.
I
I
mean,
think you're.
I'm gonna find somebody who is someone who works across the aisle, who's a moderate, who seems doesn't have scandals. You know,
I'm
at one
very.
point,
I know you're a big fan of Vance,
I
DeSantis,
do like
and
Vance. Actually,
and
I think he's
Rubio.
actually a good example.
None of those
And
guys
Rubio,
strike.
yeah.
None of those guys strike me as a solution, unfortunately.
Well, I'm not going to say they're the solution, but they fit the profile I was just describing.
It'd be nice.
Someone who seems reasonable.
I mean, if we even get back to Trump, where I mean, I'm kind of against the big government thing, but you almost need a big government mechanism to fix things. You know,
Yep.
you talk about a libertarian. I mean, a libertarian uh, dynamic isn't going to be able to undo everything that's been
That's what
done.
I've thought to
You
myself.
know,
Not what do I know, but I've thought, well, if classical liberalism, small government is the way, and if our political class, wealthy class, or whatever you want to call it, sold us out, our middle class, our industry,
right?
is there not a responsibility of government to try to bring it back?
But that's
And then
exactly the point. That's why the federalist component of our government is so important, and there is a component for it in the founders' plan.
mm,
You know, that's what the executive is for. And Trump arguably is doing exactly what the founders
right,
uh, had in mind.
right. No, I mean,
Now, whether he'll come through
I
for us or not, or whether he's just another guy that's going to abuse power, I don't know.
yeah, I can't say I sign off onto everything. Obviously, he says or does, and I don't like the stories I've been told of people who are
Right.
harassed in it by
Well,
ICE, because I'm not against law enforcement, and I'm pro law enforcement,
right.
and I'm pro all of that, but I don't like people being afraid, who are citizens being afraid, and I don't know what to do about
Yeah.
that. I understand strong deterrence and strong enforcement. Certainly, there have been things that are over the top. So I can't say that I sign off on everything, of course, that has happened under the Trump administration. But
Right.
no, he also would be an example of someone who I kind of like, who
Right.
is
Let me
would
address him because I kind of prepared some thoughts on that. If you look at the fact that it's been alleged that he's corrupt, that
yeah.
he's taking money. If
Well,
you
he's
look at
making
the
the
fact
family's making a shitload of money. Yeah,
that,
no doubt
and they're
about it.
doing things to do that. If you look at
Right,
the fact that, from what I understand, his wealth was like $3 to $10 billion. Does that sound about right?
right.
So as far as wealth goes, he's, even though he's a billionaire, he's still a fairly minor
Mm,
compared to, like, look at Elon Musk, who I
mm,
know just passed the trillion mark. That's a
mm,
thousand billions.
mm,
So you look at Trump, that's 5 or 10 billion versus an Elon Musk who has 1,000 billions.
mm.
Putin, the gross national product of Russia, I checked, is 2.6 trillion. So arguably, he may control more wealth than even Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a guy like Trump who is battling people like Putin, people like, I'm not saying Elon Musk necessarily, but there are billionaires that are after him. I mean, he needs the resources to fight these battles. So I would grant him a long leash with that kind of thing.
I grant him a pretty long leash, to be honest. I had no problem with Hunter Biden selling paintings, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
yeah,
And I don't want to go down in history as having no problem with the Trump family making money, but I honestly, they're
right, right.
entrepreneurial. What are they? Is that corruption?
Yeah, I
I
don't know.
had no problem. I didn't. Did I have a when Hunter Biden's email leaked about his involvement in the Ukrainian liquefied natural gas business or whatever?
Hmm.
First thought I said was, "Damn, this guy knows what he's talking about." I don't know. There was an email that leaked. He really seemed to have a pretty decent understanding of the Eastern European energy business, and so I said, and I'm not talking about the political action involving his father and the AG there or whatever it was, but just the fact that he was involved didn't really bother me. And if you're involved in your family, I'm not saying I support it, but the
Right.
Trump thing, do I have, does it really bother me? I mean,
I mean, I don't know. It's concerning. It definitely concerns me. But on the other hand, you got to look at what he's up against. I mean,
well,
look at
I'm not
what
going to
they
go
put him
say
through.
I don't. Well, I'm not going to go sit here and say that he's just accumulating wealth so he can fight the bad guys. I mean, that would be even too naive for me. I'm not, and you're not naive. So, I think they're taking every advantage, as the Trump family would, you would expect them to capitalize on their proximity to power. And do I have a problem with it? You know, I don't know. Not
If
necessarily, to be honest
if he's
with you.
not using it to fight the battles for us, then yeah, I guess I have more of a problem with it. But given
Right. I mean, if
given what
you're
he's up
right.
against,
Yeah.
he
Well,
needs
if I thought he was
help.
just a piece of shit and didn't care about the country, then it would be bullshit. But I'm not there. I kind of like Trump.
Right. Ultimately, it comes down to that. I mean, I agree with you. I really think he is for the country, but is he more for himself than the country, and is he strong enough to withstand
He's got to
the
be. I have to answer that
temptation?
question and say yes. He's absolutely more out for himself than anybody else in the
Okay.
world. No
I mean,
doubt. Does
and
that mean he doesn't love? I just
that's
signed up
human
for the
nature.
theory. I signed up for the theory that he's a vehicle for positive change, despite the fact that he's this crazy egomaniac. Now I say crazy egomaniac, but I also like him. So he's
Yeah.
got this crazy egomaniac part of him. He's also got this very charming, very likable, charismatic part of
Yeah.
him. So I like all of that. And there is a concern there. I acknowledge that.
Hmm.
He'd be like, he could easily be the American Stalin if he wanted to, right? With his predispositions, his
Right.
personality, but I don't think he is. And so there's a lot to keep. You got to keep your eye on him. You can't take the book.
Yeah.
But unless I'm just a crazy moron, uh, you know,
He could be
unbelievably,
he could
I
be our
don't.
George Washington. I really think he could. And that's what we're going to need. I mean, like I said, I don't think he's I, I I
People
don't think
say
he's
that.
that tuned
People say
into it.
that he's actually new money. He's not old money, and so he's making some dollars. Okay,
Right.
he's going up against this system, whether you want to call it old money or relatively new money. It's not. He's not part of that group, and so that's what people say. I do hear people say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
interesting. You fall into this category of people. I used to host a guy named Scott Bell, a friend of mine from Twitter, also,
mhm.
who I can't put my finger on, like what he is politically, but he's skeptical. He's he's against abuses of power,
Mhm.
abuses of power. So that I know. And so that's a good starting point. And that's what we know. Maybe we can start when we're trying to figure out our identity. I'm talking to myself, really. What are
Mhm.
you against? I'm against abuse.
Mhm.
I'm against, you know, not treating people with dignity. And that actually, there's a lot to that. The self worth, the self sovereignty. What is dignity? What is a
Yeah.
person? And are we all equal? I know we're not. We're like the race car thing. We're different,
Well,
but
that's a
do
good
we
point.
share a fundamental similarness? And that's the difference between equality under the law or in the eyes of God versus
Mhm.
equality of opportunity. Peterson hits that. Nietzsche hit that. It's
Right.
a big thing in the philosophy. So how do you view people? What is human nature? It's all. That's the most fundamental starting block for how you're going to look at politics.
I
So,
want to reinforce that point
any
because I
final
think it's so
final thoughts,
important. And
my friend? Yeah.
that was a feature of the Constitution that everybody was equal under the law. And that's a big part of the problem is you have people who think they're better than everybody else. And worse yet, think they're privileged to do these kind of abuses.
Mm.
And we really have to get back to the idea of not being wickos, basically. Not it's not all about you. You're here to
Mm.
I mean, you're here to enjoy life, and everybody should enjoy life as much as they can. But you're also here to do a job, whatever you decide it is
Right.
between you and God. And
That's amazing.
people
Right.
that aren't
You know,
people that aren't doing that, someone who's taking money to cause harm to the world is the worst, and
I'm sure
that's our
most of them
problem.
think they're doing the right thing, right? Imagine
Well,
you run for office and then you get momentum and you win and then you're there
but
and
then
you
you
have
get
all this power from the
you get co-opted.
cooperation.
You get co-opted by the system, and that's what we're going nowhere with that. I mean,
Hmm.
which Trump, if anyone can rise above that, maybe Trump could. That's why I'm so
Hmm.
skeptical of his underlings right now.
You really brought up a good point. One of the key reasons why Trump emerged is we have some systemic problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And so as a diagnostic, at the very least, the existence of President Trump is an indicator that I look at. And if you're a doctor, you go, I don't want to ignore that. And so I guess that's not the same as supporting it, but it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Right.
well, let's study that. This is important. This matters. Like, let's not fucking shit on it. Let's not ignore it. Let's
Mm-hmm.
understand. And let's not shit on the people who are concerned about it
Mm-hmm.
and who
Yep.
agree that this is a flashing a sign here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very, very interesting. Let this be the first of many discussions we have.
I look forward to it. Thank you
Me
so
too,
much
my
for having
friend.
me.
Thank you, brother.
I really
Appreciate
appreciate
you.
it. Yeah, no
Take
problem.
care.
Anytime.
Adios, man.
Bye.
Later on.